This is a little bit more than people need to know, but there's a thing called the debt to GDP ratio. When the thing crashed in 2020 in March, the debt went up and the GDP, the gross domestic product, went down. This has happened throughout history. This is not the only time this has happened. The Federal Reserve Bank is a socialist or a communist organization, but they'll never tell you that. What this marks to me is the end of the American Empire. And because that's what happened with the end of the Roman Empire. And what happened at the end of the Roman Empire, the leaders of Rome debased the currency. They were taking silver coins and gold coins, they were filing them and melting them and doing all these goofy things. They were fighting wars, we're still fighting wars that we couldn't afford, they couldn't afford, and they started taxing the worker. And back in Roman times, the worker was the farmer or the yeoman. And so the government, those fat asses up there, were just taxing the crap out of the worker. And pretty soon the worker says, why should I work? Because, I've got to just keep giving my money to the government. And pretty soon they call them Roman circuses, so they're the big coliseums, and they were feeding lions, people to lions and all that other stuff. Today we have the Super Bowl and the March Madness, and everything's the same, it's the same. Our Federal Reserve Bank, our Treasury, and our government has messed up the US dollar so much that they have to find a way to keep people happy. So the stimulus money they print, everybody says, oh God, it's because they shut the economy down and this and that. And everybody says, yeah, so they're going to give me PPP and all of this stuff. So just remember this, that money comes from production. And when we pay people not to produce, which is PPP and all that, we just pay them not to revolt. And that's what happened during the Roman times. And so that's why I say it's the end of the American Empire, because our money is corrupt. So that's basically it. Now, would I take the money? Absolutely. We're talking about, don't fight the government, don't fight the Fed, don't fight politics. If they're going to give me $1,000, I'll take it, but I would convert it into either gold, silver, or Bitcoin. You've got to be smarter than the government, which is not that hard to do. And it's just coming apart right now. And like when the Fed talks about stimulus checks, well, the only people that get rich, they get all that money for free. It goes into them via BlackRock, a hedge fund, and it goes straight into Wall Street. And then the guys who own Facebook and Amazon get richer. UBI is a small part of it. What they're doing is they're propping up zombies. And zombies are companies that are mismanaged, like Hertz right now is completely bankrupt. Boeing is bankrupt. The cruise ships are bankrupt. Ford's bankrupt. And the Fed, the Treasury, and Wall Street keep propping them up. I've said to your generation, you have more power today with that iPhone than any other generation in history. That iPhone, is that 2007 or 2009 it came out? Man, you guys have so much power to be the best entrepreneurs in the world. So there's a lot of good things happening for you guys, except if you went to school and you're taught by those incompetent school teachers, like my poor dad. Now, they're good people, but they haven't got any, as they say in Spanish, no cojones, no cojones. The Federal Reserve Bank is a socialist or a communist organization, but they'll never tll you that. When I was about 25 years old, I started studying this stuff, and the more I studied, the more I felt I needed a shower. They were just lying to us. When the market crashed in 2020, March of 2020, only 16% of the teachers, firefighters, and police officers' pension was funded, 16%. So they had $16 for every 100 they owed. Now it's down to 6. They're broke. So they're covering all of this up, so they want to bring UBI in so they can just mass produce money And then so they're going to pay people not to work so they can escape. Do you know what I mean? So, well, we gave you all this money, and they're going to escape. You know, I say to your generation, with that iPhone, become an entrepreneur. You know, so you don't need the job security. Nothing wrong with it, but you don't want to need it, and you don't need the UBI. You don't need the paycheck. If you can get off of needing that paycheck, you're free. If you can make your own money, that's the difference. This is a little bit more than people need to know, but you know, there's a thing called the debt to GDP ratio. So when the thing crashed in 2020 in March, the debt went up and the GDP, the gross domestic product, went down. So we produced less, but we raised the debt up. So debt went up, GDP went down. And if this coronavirus comes back, which I think it will, we're bankrupt. Once debt to GDP passes 90%, we're bankrupt. Today it's 115% debt to GDP in America. So we're already bankrupt. And so the UBI is no different than the Romans paying the Roman citizens to sit in the Colosseum and watch the Dallas Cowboys play the Green Bay Packers. You know, nothing really changes. What they're afraid of is deflation, because deflation means depression. So this thing called quantitative easing, which is printing money, that came out in 1930. You know, Bernanke thinks he did it, but he copied it in 1930. And then they have zero interest rates policy. So what that means is they print money and then they pay you nothing, no interest, zero interest rate policy. And people still say to their kids, go to school, work hard, you know, save money, and, you know, save till it hurts. If you think like an entrepreneur, you've really got to think outside the box. And I said again, the iPhone gives you so much power. You know, I talked to that young guy. He's got he's 19 years old, and his father wants me to tell him to go back to college. And so I called him up. I think the numbers were he gets $12 a month on a subscription basis. And he's got, I think, 6,000 or 6,000 subscribers. So he's making like $72,000 a month. And he says, my father thinks I should go back to college. I said, well, I hate to tell you, so I called his father and said, I think your son's in good shape. You know, I was watching CNBC this morning with that's another communist organization, but they had this guy named Jim Grant get on there, and he was explaining exactly what I'm saying to you guys. You can't just keep printing this money. And so CNBC asked him, so what should you do? He says, buy gold and buy silver. He says, they're going to destroy the dollar. And the guy, Joe Kernan of CNBC, says, that's such an old idea. You know, I'm going, you know, gold and silver have been here since God created this earth. And Bitcoin is the next replacement to that. So for your generation, it really is to get outside of what mainstream media says is the right way to think, and think for yourselves.